Hello, and welcome to Now Where Were We? A series of short videos about the history of Olympia, Lacey, and surrounding areas. Your host for this program is Deborah Ross. In this series, Deb takes us to locations that inform us about the history of our community. She also visits with local historians. We welcome your feedback and suggestions.
We're standing on the porch of the Meyer-Riddle House in northeast Olympia on the shores of Bun Inlet. The home was built in 1910 by Victor Meyer, who was a local contractor. He and his wife, Lena, and their two sons lived in this house from 1910 to 1924. Well, I'm sitting here with Marisa Foley, and full disclosure, we had our wedding breakfast here 25 years ago, and Marisa, you have not changed one bit in those years.
Thank you.
And it's just a real delight to be back here in the Meyer-Riddle House, which is on the national and local registers of historic places, and you've done just a beautiful job with the house. So tell us a little bit more about the Meyer-Riddle House and its background.
Well, I believe it was built in somewhere between 1907 and 1910, maybe finished in 1910.
It's unusual construction material, right, for the time?
Well, at the time, a lot of different cities in the nation were having ashlar block construction, which is a machine that you could purchase, and then you use sand and kind of made a concrete base, and then they poured the mold to make it look like a stone.
So it looks just like stone from the outside.
Kind of like Tenino sandstone, but it's actually a machine made
right
on the site
okay.
Concrete block.
Now we're going to go see the tunnel in a few minutes, and there's a lot of local legends about the tunnel as well. I know some people think it had something to do with bootlegging.
Right.
But do you know anything more about
that?
Well,
from what I heard, it was used to bring in coal, and I have an old picture that showed sheep grazing on the hillside, and they were German, I believe. So the sheep could go into the basement, and there were a couple troughs fed by the spring out back, the artesian spring, and then there was an area for like a cistern. So I believe that the sheep probably helped heat the house. And then they also brought the coal in. Although East Bay Drive wasn't there at the time, they would have to have, brought the coal up into the tunnel, which I don't think would be easy, but it would probably be easier than coming down from Rose Street, which is, I believe, the other access at the time.
We're a lot higher up than the water level now. Right. Well, thank you so much for opening up your beautiful house for us. How long have you been here?
I've owned it for 26 years.
Okay, and what is the business called now, Marisa?
Right now I call it the Olympia Mansion.
Okay.
It's a vacation rental. So normally it's just number 0965, whatever it is. But we just call it the Olympia Mansion just for fun. It's not really a trademark name or anything else, but pretty much just vacation rental now.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and it's great to get reacquainted with you.
You too.
Really appreciate it. Thanks. The house has a couple of interesting features. The water supply was from an artesian well, which still exists to the back of the house. And it was fed through a series of pipes down into the basement, through some troughs and into a cistern, which supplied water not only for this house, but also for as many as 6 surrounding buildings. In addition, there was a tunnel, which still exists, that leads from the basement out to the ground level below. There have been a number of local legends about that tunnel, that it may have had something to do with bootlegging or other nefarious activities, but the reality is it was probably just used as a service entrance to bring in coal and other supplies to the home. The home was owned by Victor Meyer and his wife Lena and 2 children until 1924, when it was sold to Emma Riddle, a natural practitioner of medicine. And I'm going to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about women in medicine in Olympia. Although medicine today is largely dominated by men, the fact is that over probably the course of human history, the majority of health practitioners were women. They served as midwives, as herbal practitioners, and of course, mothers. And Olympia is no exception in having a number of women health practitioners throughout our history. The first one that I know about was Isabella Bush, who came out with her husband, George Washington Bush. She was known to be a medical practitioner and served the needs of the pioneers who came here in the 1840s. And I like to think that Isabella interacted with the Native Americans out on Bush Prairie, where the airport is now, and that she learned some medicine from the Native Americans, and perhaps they learned something from her. The next medicine woman that I want to talk about is Mary Olney Brown. Mary Olney Brown was an early immigrant to Washington Territory, coming over the Oregon Trail with her husband Benjamin and a large number of Olney relatives. She was well known and beloved for her medical knowledge. She practiced a form of hydrotherapy involving alternating hot and cold water treatments, which proved quite popular. Mary was also an ardent suffragist and temperance advocate. It's worth noting that the 2 issues of suffrage and temperance were closely related in the 19th and early 20th century. They in turn were linked to issues of protecting family health. As a strong advocate for women and the family, and a health practitioner, Mary believed that unscrupulous purveyors of liquor, as well as brothel keepers, had undue sway over the political process in Olympia. If women were granted the right to vote, laws could be enacted that would protect women and children from the ravages of family alcoholism and venereal disease. The third medical practitioner I want to talk about is somebody we know very, very little about. Her name was Lucy Cook, and I ran across her picture in a collection of 1914 photographs of commercial establishments in downtown Olympia. I know very little about Dr. Cook, except that she did have a medical degree, and her practice was located in what was then called the Dead Zone, or the Tenderloin District of Olympia. That was an area of Olympia we'll be talking about further on, where prostitution and gambling and liquor laws were less strictly enforced than in the rest of Olympia. So the fact that Lucy Cook chose to establish her medical practice there tells me that that she considered part of her clientele perhaps the sex workers and other women who lived in the Tenderloin District of Olympia. So the last medical practitioner we're going to talk about was Emma Riddle, who bought this house in 1924. She variously called herself a naturopath or a chiropractor. In any case, she did practice what we would now know as alternative medicine. She first was established in downtown Olympia, but when she bought this home, she established it as a location for treatment of primarily of women's disorders. And in the upstairs floor, she had a boarding house for young women. We don't know exactly what kind of disorders Emma Riddle treated, but it wouldn't be uncommon for women to come to other women practitioners for treatment of sexual disorders or other female disorders when they felt uncomfortable being seen by male doctors. Emma lived here until about 1950, and in 1991, after the house had gone into some decline, Marisa and her husband bought the property, where they operated it for a time as a bed and breakfast, and now it's rented out as a vacation house. So I hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into the history of women in medicine in Olympia and had a chance to visit this beautiful house, which is listed on the National and Local Historic Registers. I'm Deborah Ross. Till next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you.